Hello, my name is Jed Borman and I'm an A-level media student at the Billericay School. The media product that I've constructed is the opening sequence for a psychological thriller, and during the process of filming and editing it I've learned a great deal about specific media technologies. I've also learned various skills related to the use of said technologies, and I feel that I have progressed further in my understanding of how technologies affect production of media products. It is also worth noting that this was the first time I had created a project of this manner, from idea to finished product. The camera that I used for all of my filming was the Sony Handycam HDR CX190, and I found that it was fairly easy to work with. Before filming any of my sequence, I decided to produce some test footage in order to see how the camera functioned in certain situations. I knew that for my opening sequence I would want to film an interrogation scene and that the lighting would be low, so I took some footage of someone in a low lit room in order to see what the footage was like. It handled the lighting well due to the fact that it shoots at full 1080p, but I did change the white balance on the camera just to make the colour temperature lower and allow the contrast between the blacks and the whites to stand out more. During filming I discovered that the camera had an autofocus feature, which meant that it changed focus independently. I decided to leave this feature active to begin with because I thought it would help, but I very quickly found it to ruin the footage I was taking, so I disabled it and decided to focus the camera manually. The camera also recorded fairly good sound, which meant I didn't need to record the dialogue in my scene separately. I did, however, decide to use a voice recorder for the final line of dialogue, which I would place over a black screen at the end of my sequence. The fact that entry-level cameras such as the one that I used can produce quality images shows the democratisation of film, that people can produce films for little to no cost. An example of this occurring in a professional film situation would be Gareth Edwards, the director of Monsters, who used entry-level equipment to film and edit his production and gain it distribution from a professional distribution company. I also used a standard tripod alongside my camera, and this helped me gain better results in terms of quality and variety of shots. It allowed me to shoot my shot reverse shot steadily and allowed me to consistently shoot level shots within the same scene. As well as using the tripod, I also used the monopod in conjunction with the camera. I found this very useful because it allowed me more freedom in comparison to the tripod. I used it to steady the camera during movement shots, such as the transition between the end of the interrogation scene and the safe house scene. It also allowed me to get shots I wouldn't have been able to without it. For example, the high angle shot in the corner of the room that would later turn into a security camera shot. For the post-production of my sequence I used two programs, Final Cut Express and LiveType, which comes packaged with it. I had very little experience with Final Cut and no experience at all with LiveType, meaning that the process I went through was a massive learning curve. So as you can imagine, I ran into various problems that I had to overcome and learn from. For example, at one point during the editing process, a selection of my clips were not playing and were displaying the message media offline. So I decided to Google how to fix the problem. I found a forum post on a site explaining that if you work on a project on more than one computer, then the clips associated with one machine may not work on another, and that they needed to be reconnected in order to work. The fact that I could simply log onto the internet and solve a problem in a matter of minutes demonstrates how technological convergence has become an integral part of the production of media products, especially for short films made available through websites such as Vimeo. Another example of technological convergence came when I was searching for a font to use for my production titles. I went to a website that I already knew of called dafont.com and searched for fonts that related to the titles which I knew I wanted to create. This took a matter of minutes to and helped improve the look and feel of my production. Another problem that I encountered during my editing was that my clips differed in lighting. During the filming I decided to light the interrogation scene using a 120 watt work light placed in the corner. This lit the room well, but I also decided to use a secondary light source, a 40 watt desk lamp, placed on the desk in order to better light the subject sitting down at it. I also used a bounce, a white and a black sheet, placed on the desk and below the subjects in order to absorb light from some shots and darken them, and to reflect light in order to lighten scenes. All of these things constituted to the shots differing in their overall look. In order to fix this problem, I applied the colour correction video filter to all of my shots and tweaked the blacks, mids and whites in order to make them appear far more alike. I also experimented with hue settings and achieved a colder feel to the sequence, which was perfect for the effect that I wanted. Through my general experimentation with Final Cut, I feel that I have learned a great deal about how to successfully create a media product. Colour correction was one of the most important for me because it gave my sequence a more professional look and feel. Also during post-production, additional effects were required on certain shots in order to finish off the sequence. One such example was a shot which I wanted to look as if it had been taken by a security camera. In order to create such an effect, I first logged onto YouTube and searched for any tutorials that could help me create my desired effect. Luckily I found one that I liked the look of and used it to create my effect, which involved applying a distortion video filter, adjusting settings such as roll and static, and then applying a viewfinder to the clip to finish off the effect. As well as using the tutorial, I searched Google for images of security camera footage as a reference for the effect. Both of these things were examples of technological convergence and how it has improved the way in which media platforms can interact in order to benefit each other. Once I had pieced together all of my footage, I needed to place a soundtrack into my sequence that played as it did. I tested various different songs in order to see if they fitted well with the themes and context of the film, and decided upon the track Teardrop by Massive Attack. However, I needed a version of the track that had no vocals, so I again searched YouTube for an instrumental version of the song and found a version that someone had created with approval from the band's record label. This meant that I could legally use the track within my sequence without the threat of copyright infringement. The second part of post-production came in the form of LiveType, and similarly to Final Cut, had no experience with the program. It was, however, much simpler to use in comparison to Final Cut. I'd already decided upon my distribution and production titles through research and knew that I would need video backgrounds that were not available within the program. So I again found some on YouTube that were stock video and were free to use for personal or educational purposes. I simply downloaded them and imported them into LiveType, placed the names of my companies onto the titles. I used fonts from dafont.com again for these due to the fact that the preloaded ones on LiveType didn't quite satisfy what I wanted them to look like. Over the whole process of creating my media product, I have learnt that modern day technologies have become so advanced at a consumerist level that they can be handled by a complete novice like myself and be used to create fairly competent products. The whole process just emphasises the ideas of democratisation of film and how it is allowing anybody to create films, and the idea of technological convergence, creating an interlinking system of technologies that can be used in conjunction with each other in order to enhance each individual experience.